Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. Today we have Joel Strom with us, all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona. Now, Joel is a value believer, and what I mean by that is he's always about preaching value. He's got a company by the name Chief Value Officers, and he's been on a journey for the last 40 years trying to move executives, CEOs, from being CEOs to Chief Value Officers. He also had a book that was released recently, CEO to CVO, moving your company from ordinary to extraordinary. So let's welcome Joel, and we'll talk all about value today. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Wow. Yeah, well, as you just mentioned to everybody, I've been doing this a long time, so there's a lot of background to it. But I started out coming out of school as an engineer, went to work for some large companies, large manufacturing companies. And very shortly after I did that, I realized that, boy, this wasn't for me. I had to be in something that I had control over my life. And I was tired of companies telling me where to live and how to do it and where to move to. So I bought a small company when I was way too young to do that. And as we all do when we do things like that, it's a great learning experience, sometimes a very hard learning experience as you go through that. But it taught me a lot of great lessons on how to create a great business, how to move a business forward. And when I sold that business, I started, like a lot of other people, I said, you know what, in between, I think I'll just do some consulting. Maybe I can help some people avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell into in growing that business. And once I started that, I realized, wow, this is what I really love to do. I love working with companies, with owners, helping them move forward, helping them expand their business, helping them create extraordinary businesses. And that kind of side job for a short period of time turned into my career. And that's where I've spent my entire career is really working with creating firms that work with clients that want to move their company forward. And so it's exclusively with privately held businesses. What typically is talked to about is kind of a middle market business. Entrepreneurial owners who've done a great job of taking a concept or an idea and working hard at it, and then one day ending up with a business and helping them get over that hump and moving from an entrepreneurial business to a true, real business that has true value, so that they can do what they want with it.
Your own career, when you said you very early in your life, you kind of made that decision that this is what you wanted to do, and you've been doing it for 40 years. Prior to that, when you were working somewhere else or doing something else, what was the transition like for you, to try to leave the safety net of a job and jump into something like this, and back then?
Well, there were people, we had small children, and had a house, and a lot of people who said, Joel, are you out of your mind? What are you doing this for? And I just couldn't, I wasn't happy. I wasn't comfortable in an organization. Not that the companies weren't nice and good and people that we were working with were good people. It was just this feeling of that I needed to be in control of something. And that's what really changed, or what really pushed me into doing that. And, it's one of those things, like you say, you never look back. Every once in a while, I think back about a couple of job offers that I got from large companies. And I wonder what would have happened to me if I'd have taken that job. And then my wife will say to me, you'd have left and done exactly what you're doing now. So, yeah, it's.
And at what point in your journey did you kind of discover or figure out the value equation?
Well, it's when you start working with different businesses and you get the broad exposure to the different ways people run their business and what I was doing. And even when I bought that first small manufacturing company, and my wife would say, well, Joel, you tell me the company's doing really well and we're growing. Where's our money? How come we don't have money? And the explanation to her of, look, we have to reinvest in this business. We have to look to the future. What are we trying to accomplish with this business? And how are we going to get there? So the big change, the thing that I have worked with my clients the hardest on, and some are really, really understand it, and some have a lot of trouble with it, is the idea that you cannot sacrifice, as a small business or as a growing business, you cannot sacrifice long-term value for short-term profitability. Uh, you can't, as some of my clients have done over the years, try to use their companies as ATM machines and continually take cash out without reinvesting it and looking at. And the reason that happens is because people don't set that value goal. Why are you in this business? I mean, look, there's some people that go in it just to make a quick buck because it's not going to happen. It's not going to have a future. But the type of businesses I typically work with are businesses that can go on and really grow and become really exciting and valuable businesses.
In today's terms, and right now, actually, as we speak, and what's going on with the stock market, right? We are all about future value, valuation based. That's our model. We look at that future value and we put a price on it today. And then there are people that benefit from it. There are people that suffer from it. In your mind, what's true value when we talk about business?
That's a great question, because it's a lot of people think when I go to talk to somebody about the value of their business or creating value, I I've gotten the response sometimes of, well, I'm not even thinking of selling my business. What's the idea? I mean,
Mhm.
why should I grow value in this? Well, I look at value a little bit differently. To me, what really creates value in a business is, like the title of my book is, to create an extraordinary business. If you can create a high value business, which in my definition is a great, extraordinary type business, if you can do that, you obviously, if go to sell the business, you're going to get a maximum price. However, you're also beforehand, you're going to have a business that people want to work for, because everybody wants to work for a good business, a great business. Your customers are going to want to buy from you because they want to buy from a great business. You have, as an owner, you have options. If you've really got this business running the way we would like to get it running to maximize the value, you can get another person to be the daily operator and back off a little bit. You can focus on the strategic growth of the business and where you're going. And it does one more thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that the value of a business is a privately held business is much higher if the owner is not critical to the business. And that's a tough one to get past some owners, because, and I could tell you stories about company owners who just kept everything. They felt no one else could do it better than them, and the value decreases. But the other thing it does, if you can get out as owner, if you can get out of that into the indispensable position of running a business, then if something should happen to you, uh, if you're indispensable in the business value drops immediately, and your family, your heirs, they suffer because there's no value now, or there's reduced value. If you're not indispensable, as I tell my clients sometimes, and they don't want to hear this, is um, they may be sad for a while, they may mourn you, but the business is going to keep on going and the value is going to stay, and your family is going to benefit from being able to make a choice as to what to do with the business. So there's so many positives to creating a valuable business besides the sale of the business, the actual sale. Now, that I don't want to belittle that. Situations we've been involved in where clients have set value goals and grown to those, and then created extraordinary businesses, have created really high end sales beyond what's normal in the industry.
Mm-hmm. So the framework for value creation, what do you think it is?
Well, what I've used over the years, what I've created and used as a tool to help my clients do that, is what I call strategic value. And in strategic value, there are actually what I call four pillars to value. There's a financial pillar, there's an operational pillar, a strategic pillar, and a industry pillar. And within each one of those pillars, there's obviously a lot of categories, a lot of components that we have to work on. But if you think of it that way, what you're really saying is that think of four legs to a table. If one of the legs is not strong or is short, the table's going to wobble. If it's really weak, it may collapse. So when you go to look at your business and say, is this a valuable business? You have to check off each of those four pillars and the components within those pillars. As an example, in the operational pillar is where the organization and the ownership and how it's structured and how important the owner is to the business is in that pillar. And I've sat in one particular situation where a client of mine had somebody who was interested in their business. They sent a team in to do their due diligence. They do the due diligence. They come back out. We have a meeting, and they sit down and say, you know what, you've got a great business here, but we can't buy it because we can't make a deal. And my client is shook, and he says, well, why not? I mean, what's preventing you? And they looked at him and said, you are. He said, you are so critical to this business. And in the words of those buyers, they said, this business is one heartbeat away from a disaster. And we just can't make that investment. So that one component within one pillar killed basically a $25 million deal. And so anyway, he looked at me at that after they left that meeting, and he said, all right, I'm ready. All those things you told me we should be doing, let's do them. And here's my goal. Here's my strategic value goal. I want to be worth $25 million in 5 years. Well, the short story is that 3.5 years in to this process of improving and fixing this company's strategic value, he gets a call from another potential buyer. And they came in and said, we want to buy your business. And he said, it's not for sale. I got another 1.5 years on my improvement plan. And they said, every business is for sale. Name a price. And he named $75 million. And they bought the business for $75 million. Because he had gotten to a point that I use, the term I use is a gotta have business. He had made, by fixing those things in those pillars of value, and by really going beyond that and having a real focus in improving it, he had made his company a gotta have. He was profitable. He had good reporting from the financial pillar. He had great product and new concepts and technology in the strategic pillar. And he had a good, solid executive team and other employees and communication going on in the operational pillar. And in the industry pillar, he was in the right industry, and now he was much, much more well-known in that industry. And it all came together, and he got an amazing multiple. Um, I'm sure you're familiar with the way businesses are valued in
Yep.
terms of EBITDA times multiple. Well, building value is not only building that net profit line and that EBITDA line, it's how can you move the multiple? And you move the multiple by creating a gotta have business that you get people that are going, boy, we can buy that other business for less money, but this is the one we've got to have. So,
Right. And then you also talk about accelerating the value chain, right? So how do you do that?
well, once you start out with an assessment, you gotta have there's two starting points. You have to decide what's your value vision. Where do you want to be? I had a client once that said, look, we're at $15 million now. We want to be at $100 million in revenue in 10 years. And that was their vision, and that's what they went after. But then everybody has to do an assessment of where they are. You have to understand your pillars, how strong they are, what the components, what the weaknesses are. I actually have an assessment tool that you can use for nothing on my website on chiefvalueofficers.com. If you go there and take the assessment, it'll get graded. You'll see where and which components of which pillars you have weaknesses in and where you're stronger. And it'll also give you some suggestions on where your priorities should be, because that's going to give you the biggest value jump. But once you've done your assessment, now you have to accelerate. Where do you go? Well, I know where I am now. I know where I've got to go. Now I got to make my roadmap to get there. So we talk about creating a value acceleration roadmap that says, I've got these things to work on. Now I have to prioritize them. What should I do? What does this company need to work on first, second, third, whatever? And the biggest problem I see in companies sometimes is they take that assessment, they come back with a roadmap that has 15 different things that have to be done, and they think they're going to do that all overnight. You just can't jump into everything. So my focus when I work with my clients are to tell them that let's pick maximum of three projects to work on. We all have day jobs. Every one of your employees has a day job that they have to do to satisfy customers, but we also have to get these done. So let's start to work on a prioritized list, and let's look at reporting on progress monthly, quarterly, annually. And it's amazing how the momentum starts to build on that acceleration, and that roadmap starts to get completed, and you keep moving forward and build that value.
Awesome. So your company, Chief Value Officers, I know you have a team there as well. What are all the services that you provide?
Well, years ago, we used to do a lot of different things. And then we realized that most of our focus was on, most of the things we did was actually focused on creating value. How do you move this company from where it is now to where it wants to go? And that's really our main focus. And on the value, you talked about the value acceleration. On that plan, how can we help our clients create that really great executive team? How can we help them evaluate those things? What processes and procedures can we help them implement to get their operational pillar stronger? Maybe there's some weaknesses in the strategic pillar that some of our marketing people can help on. So we put together a team of people who are specialists in particular areas, and we can help our clients in specific areas within their value acceleration process, or just help them monitor and work through it if they're capable of doing that.
Awesome. Now, in terms of executives, or do you do any kind of executive coaching as well?
Yeah, personally, I do most of it with the CEO, and the first thing that I need a CEO to do when I'm coaching them, to if they're moving in this value creation mode, is getting them to really buy into the concept of the CVO concept of really what is their job? I asked them to look at what they're doing every day and what they should be doing every day. In other words, are some of the small things that they're doing really adding to the value? Or are there other people in the company that can do a better job of adding to that value? So my coaching is really focused on the CEO, moving him to the CVO and working with him on the things that him or her on the things that they really need to do to get the organization focused on value. The communication that has to happen it can't be overstressed. You really have to be talking and communicating, and the organization has to understand, not just your leadership team, but everybody in the organization has to understand, where are we going? What's our goal? How if we're going to expect everybody in the organization to add to the value every day, they need to know where we're going and how can they add value to the company. So my coaching is really focused on that CEO and getting that person to really accept the concept of value creation and understand the processes and things that they have to do to continue to get their organization moving in the right direction.
Talking about value, the last year and the changes that we have seen as a part of that year. And when we talk about value, it means different things to different people, right? Obviously, every business is out there chasing the dollar, but then last year, it put brakes on it. And then for people, working from home and remote working, and how that's kind of become mainstream, and then the amount of time and flexibility that they get, that's of value to the employees. So there's been this whole discussion and debate that, hey, everything's getting accelerated. Now there's a discussion that are people getting tired of it? What have been your observations in terms of the changes that we have seen?
Wow, it's obviously been a lot tougher for certain companies because of more at-home work, or my manufacturing clients still have to be in the plant manufacturing, and what they did to keep people safe, and I think what that did all year, what the part that I've seen most affected during the year has been leadership. The stronger leaders, the stronger CEOs, presidents of companies, leadership teams in companies, the more they've been able to apply good leadership practices to this unique situation that we found ourselves in overnight, basically, has really, and some of them it took them a couple of months to get themselves restructured, if you will, or refocused. But they're the ones that had good leadership capabilities before, were able to flip and do some keep people motivated and working forward. But it's the big question is, I heard something the other day on some news channel that said people are facing some fear of going back to what it was. In other words, it's been such a sheltered type of environment for a lot of this year, working from home, not having to go into traffic, not having to do all these things, that as we're getting closer to opening back up again, um, people are getting this angst of what's it going to be like when I have to go back and drive back to work again and start putting gas in my car again. So.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your book, CEO to CEO, CVO. How did that come about? And
Well,
tell us a little bit about it. Yeah.
it kind of came. Let me go back just about now about 6 years ago. I had a client come to us, or a company come to us, that said, we need you to help us out. We've had a generational transition in our company, and we have the siblings were now owners, and they had a CEO that was running the business, and they weren't happy with it. Now that they own the company, they came to me and said, "Can you please assess our company? Come in there and help us." And as I did that, they asked me, "We'd like to move our old CEO out. Would you consider being an interim CEO for us?" So sounded like a good idea. And one thing led to another. And before I knew it, I took the position of full-time CEO. And I backed out of my practice and I let my other people work the practice. And I was spending 100% of my time, well, probably 150% of my time, running this business. Had about 250 employees. It was manufacturing and technology, and it was technical products. And the reason I did it was to really, it's been a long time since I was in that seat instead of in the consultant seat. And so I said, this is a great way to see if all this stuff works. And that's what I did. I had to transition that business from, my predecessor was not close to being a CVO. Everything came out of that business. Money came out, payments went out to owners. He was he was um, he was bonus based on today's profit, not on anything else. So the incentive for him was to not reinvest in the business, to not hire great people who cost money, to not do not create new products, but just make a lot of money today. And so I had the transition, I had to change that culture. And so after 5 years of doing that, it was time to come back out and stop a 24/7 job and continue to. I had promised my wife 5 times that I would slow down, and this wasn't doing it. So I came back out and I said, "What did I learn? What did I find out during those really tough 5 years of changing that business?" And that's really what I said. I said, I gotta put this down. Not just what I went through, but it worked. So I want to make sure I've written it down. I want to make sure I talk about some of my client situations that worked and some of them that didn't work. And so I decided to not write a workbook, but just a concept book of, what does that mean? What am I supposed to be doing as the CEO of this business? And that's what's in the book.
Awesome.
I,
Awesome.
I also have a chapter, by the way. There's 2 chapters in there that are kind of separate. It's being a CVO in a family-owned business, because that's a unique experience altogether. And then being what leadership traits are the most necessary in a CVO that's trying to grow value. And so I have a leadership chapter, I have a family chapter, and then the rest of it is all based on this value acceleration process.
Awesome. And what does 2021 look like? What's the plan going ahead?
Just keep doing a lot of this. I'm hoping that, what, it's funny. My wife told me for years and years that I didn't have to keep jumping on airplanes and flying all over the country to work with my clients. And I said, nah, you have to be there. Well, this year changed things. And I realized that you can do a lot of work when you're not wasting a lot of time in airports and in being stuck in traffic and those kind of things. So I think it's going to be a kind of a hybrid year. I'm looking forward to doing uh, some more virtual type work, as well as finally getting out and actually shaking hands with my clients again, and with hopefully doing some more speaking, because that sure got cut back. So I've got a few things lined up. If they make it, then I'll be back out there doing it again. Hopefully we'll be open up and getting back to some normalcy.
Awesome. And where do people find your book and how do they contact you?
Well, there's a couple ways to find the book. The easiest probably is just go to Amazon. The ebook and the paperback is there. My suggestion would be to read the book and take that strategic value assessment that's on the website, Chief Value Officers, that's plural.com. And my email is there, and I'm not a real hard push kind of guy. If somebody takes that value acceleration or value assessment and has a question or something, I love to talk to people, even if it's not a true client situation. So I'm at that stage of my career where I just want to help people. So
Absolutely. Well, Joel, this has been a pleasure listening to you, learning about value and turning businesses into value businesses. Thank you so much for joining us and wish you the very best.
thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been exciting and great meeting you today.
Thank you.